Hey, welcome everybody to the Boat Dealer Profits podcast. I'm your host, Matt Selhorst, and I'm very excited about our guest today. We have Tom Dammrich, the president of the NMMA, back with us. We had a little technical difficulty on our first attempt at this, and Tom was gracious enough to rejoin us and help for that little snafu. So, Tom, thank you for joining us again here, and I'm excited to have the conversation.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be with you, Matt.
So tell everybody kind of what has been going on over there at NMMA over the last couple of months, and what's been your top priorities that have been on your desk.
Well, our top priorities have related mostly to advocacy issues, obviously international trade, the whole tariff situation on steel and aluminum and the resulting retaliatory tariffs from the EU, Mexico, and China on recreational boats. We continue to work on the Modern Fish Act and trying to get that through the Senate so we can get it to the president's desk by the end of the year. In fact, we are testifying before the International Trade Commission now, trying to influence the outcome of the anti-dumping case on aluminum sheets coming from China. Of course, we continue to work hard on the Discover Boating campaign, and we're in the process of finishing up a new economic impact study on the recreational boating industry that we hope to have done in the next month or so. We were very delighted when the BEA at the end of September released their final numbers for the outdoor recreation satellite account, that for the first time we've got a government number that says outdoor recreation in this country represents 2.2% of GDP, about $767 billion. And recreational boating and fishing are the largest segment of outdoor recreation at about $39 billion.
Wow.
When you say 2.2% of GDP, a lot of people think, well, that kind of sounds like a small number. Truth of the matter is the Bureau of Economic Analysis thought that's a huge number, because all of agriculture in our country is 1% of GDP. All of mining is 1.5% of GDP. Outdoor recreation is 2.2% of GDP. So it is a major part of the U.S. economy. And in fact, there is outdoor recreation that can be found in 67 of the 71 industries, vertical industries, that the BEA tracks. So it's pervasive as well.
Do you think that was an eye-opener for some people?
Oh, I definitely think that's an eye-opener for some people. I mean, when we had the briefing for Congress, for the Senate, back at the end of September, one of the things I said is, I've sat in meetings in Washington, D.C. with agency people and members of Congress who would say things like, outdoor recreation is what you do with leftover time, leftover land, and leftover money. And those of us in the recreation industry knew that the truth was a long, long way from that. And in fact, that American spending on outdoor recreation is a major economic driver for our country. And now we've got government data to support that claim.
Well, that's fantastic. That is fantastic. Now, last time we talked, as currently the international trade conversation around the tariffs has been a major point in the media, and you had spoke with Vice President Pence, I believe, when we had spoke a month or two ago. Any updates? It seems like the administration is still kind of taking the path that they had been. Any updates there?
So we brought some members to Washington, D.C. In September to sit down with the Vice President Pence's chief economist to talk about trade issues. We've also met with Secretary Ross to talk about the tariff situation. And it is pretty clear to us that the administration is on a firm path and unwilling to waver from the path of what they perceive of correcting what they perceive to be some inequities in trade between our trading partners. And clearly, I don't think anybody questions that China has not been a fair trader, that China steals our intellectual property, and that we need to do something to deal with China. But to slap Section 232 tariffs on steel and aluminum on our best allies, Canada and the European Union, just seems counterproductive. And it's turned out to be very counterproductive in that, we've got these retaliatory tariffs of 25% on boats to the EU and 10% to Canada, 15% to Mexico, which is basically just frozen those export markets.
Right.
We're just not shipping any product to Europe for sure, and very little into Canada anymore. But the outlook, we were encouraged by the new U.S. Mexico-Canada trade agreement that was announced. We were hoping that the Section 232 tariffs would be lifted as part of that announcement. They were not. But we are encouraged that there are conversations going on with the Canadians and the Europeans, and hopeful that in the next few months, these Section 232 tariffs on the EU and Canada and Mexico will be lifted, and that will be a tremendous relief for the industry.
Right, right.
Go ahead.
I was just going to ask what you're hearing from the manufacturers on this side as to kind of their approach with this. Wait and see is kind of the attitude, I guess.
Yeah, I think that most are, 25% in Europe is just, nobody can absorb that. The 10% into Canada, I think, certainly some manufacturers are trying to work with their Canadian dealers to figure out a way to share that cost or to continue to get some boats into Canada. One of the risks is that, if boats don't start moving into Canada soon, dealers in Canada aren't going to have any American boats for the boat shows this January.
Right.
And I think that's a real concern, certainly for the manufacturers and for the Canadian dealers. We have we also operate NMMA Canada, and we've got Sarah Angel, who is on our staff as the president of NMMA Canada, and she's been working with the Canadian government, doing just an excellent job, making sure they understand what impact these retaliatory tariffs are having on Canadian businesses. And we're encouraged that something is going to give here in terms of this trade war with Canada. Probably first, the EU will be a couple of months behind that. And what we're being told by the administration is to expect that the tariffs and trade war with China is going to last for years.
Okay. Well, let's switch to a little bit a better topic for the industry, and that's the Modern Fishing Act. You had mentioned that that we're kind of taking the steps forward on that. Talk a little bit about what's happening there and what your expectations are.
So the Modern Fish Act would give the National Marine Fisheries Service more flexibility in managing saltwater fisheries. It's really critical to our industry and the fishing industry, as many popular species of fish have had their seasons reduced to a handful of days, and nobody's going to buy a big offshore fishing boat if they can only go out and use it 2 or 3 or 4 days a year to catch the most popular species of fish. So we're very successful in getting the elements of the Modern Fish Act included in legislation that was passed by the House. We've got a bill in the Senate that has broad bipartisan support. but we were trying to get it passed by unanimous consent, and one senator can object, and it can't pass by unanimous consent. So we're in that situation. We're working to see if we can bring that senator on board, and at the same time, we're working on a strategy to include it in other must-pass legislation that'll likely be passed in the lame duck session after the November 6th election. So it is probably our number one priority to get the Modern Fish Act to the president's desk before the end of the year. I think we're by no means is it a done deal. There's a lot of work to be done, and we really need the industry still contacting their senators and telling them how important this is, that this piece of legislation get passed now. But I think we're encouraged that we've got a shot to get it done.
And that had the most, if not all, of what you were hoping to get included in it, as far as opening up and making the difference between commercial and recreational fishing?
It doesn't have everything, but it has some major things that we've been working on for years and years and years. And if we can get the Modern Fish Act across the finish line, it'll make a huge difference. I mean, one of the things is that it requires National Marine Fisheries to study allocations of fish between commercials, recreational, etc. Allocations are something that have not been looked at for decades, and we're not saying they have to be changed, but they ought to just be regularly reviewed, and that's part of the legislation. So there are some really key elements of this Modern Fish Act that would make a big difference for recreational boating and fishing.
That's great. That's great. And one of the things you mentioned, which we spoke about last time, was contacting your representatives and using not only the large size financially of the impact on GDP, but also just the numbers of people involved in the industry. Talk about that program and how people can get involved there.
So, we've got 35,000 businesses in the marine industry in this country that probably directly employ 300,000 or 400,000 people. And we have an advocacy tool, called Boating United at boatingunited.com. And I urge every person in our industry to go to boatingunited.com and register their email address with us, so that when we need the industry to reach out to their congressmen or senators, we'll send them an email. We'll give them the talking points. We'll even prepare an email that they can send to their senators or congressmen with 2 or 3 clicks of their mouse, or a number for them to call to leave a message with the receptionist that says, "Please vote for the Modern Fish Act for these reasons." And constituent contact is so important. It is so critical to our advocacy efforts, and I just cannot overemphasize it. So we need our industry, the people in our industry, to become an army of advocates for things that will benefit recreational boating and to prevent things that harm recreational boating. And the best way to get involved is to go to boatingunited.com, sign up. We will not send you emails every week, probably not even every month, but a few times a year when we really need you to weigh in, we'll send you an email, and with just seconds or minutes of your time, you can make a real difference.
And I'll tell you, Tom, that it is that easy. You and your staff have done an incredible job of making it simple. It was maybe a month or so ago, and it may have been the Modern Fish Act, when that vote was happening, that I got the email from Boating United saying, "Hey, we need you to reach out to your representatives." And not only did the email was all put together. It was copy this, put it in this email, call these numbers, and send it to these email addresses. And it could not have been easier. And the impact of not just me doing it, but the other 400,000 people that are involved in the industry has obviously worked. And it's something that I really encourage folks to get out there and visit it, because they do make it very simple, and it has the impact. I mean, what type of impacts have you seen from that work at votingunited.com?
Well, it's interesting. You know, our lobbying staff in Washington, D.C. spend a lot of time visiting with members of Congress and their staff up on Capitol Hill. And when we walk into an office to talk to staff members or senators or congressmen about an issue, and they've heard from constituents in their state or their district, it's a completely different conversation. I mean, they will say, oh, yeah, we've been getting some calls on that. We've been getting some emails on that. We understand the issue. Okay, how can we help you? As opposed to walking in and they haven't heard from any constituent. And oftentimes they'll say, you know, that looks like an issue we could probably support, but we haven't heard from any of our constituents, so it's just not high on our list of priorities. So hearing from constituents is critical to the industry's advocacy efforts.
Yeah, and it's especially everything that you guys do on the other side, and putting it together for us in the industry to take that step up and say, listen, this is something that is not only going to impact our industry and our dealership and our manufacturer and our business, but also the enjoyment of your clients. I mean, the Modern Fish Act is a prime example of that's going to help your business for sure, but it also is going to open up the opportunity for your customers and for boaters, the people that we support, to be able to enjoy the lifestyle even more. And that's the part that, to me, just it jumps out and say, if you're in the industry, you have to get involved. You really have to get involved, and you've made it so easy. I was really impressed when I was doing that not too long ago.
You know, Matt, the other thing I'd just like to mention is that, you know, you may see an issue come across, and you may be a dealer in Kansas, and you say, you know, what does saltwater fishing got to do with my business? But I look at our industry as an ecosystem, and it's made up of many parts: manufacturers, dealers, distributors, marinas, banks, insurance companies, magazines, the whole ecosystem of businesses. And anything that adversely affects one part of that ecosystem is eventually going to adversely affect the whole industry ecosystem. And so it's important that everybody reach out on an issue that affects some part of our industry, even if it doesn't directly affect you today, because tomorrow the issue may directly affect you, and you're going to want the rest of the industry reaching out to help you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. And with the size that we are, that really brings up the voice of the people, and those numbers speak volumes for helping you guys and everything you're accomplishing. So let's talk a little bit about. And by the way, I will link that votingunited.com, that website, in the show notes. So if you're driving down the road listening to this podcast, just know you can go to the show notes. There'll be a link there. And when I signed up, it took 3 or 4 or 5 seconds. It was very, very quick and easy. And other than when I've been asked to, hey, here's the issue, here's why we're promoting this, and here's what we need you to do specifically, and here's the 2-minute steps that it'll take you to complete it. It hasn't been filling up my email box, and it was very clear, very concise, and very easy to follow. So I encourage everybody listening to do that, and share it with everybody on your staff, everybody in your dealership, and everybody in the within the industry that you know. So Tom,
that's a really key.
Go ahead.
That's a really key point, Brad. Is don't just do it yourself. Get everybody else at your company to do it too. Yeah, because those numbers add up, and that's where the power of the industry comes from, and getting the right conversations in front of people, instead of just talking about it at the water cooler. That, man, this fish act or this tariff or this whatever the next issue is going to be, and there will be another issue that, like you said, will eventually impact you in your region or your type of boating.
to have everybody speaking up together is incredible. You mentioned also that that you've been working on the 3-year strategic planning. What areas in there are would be of interest to the people listening, and things that, hey, what can we expect coming from the future?
So we have spent the last year working on a strategic plan. A task force of our board of directors has been working with the staff. We've had a couple of all-day board meetings to address it, and we hired a guy named Dan Veroni from Potomac Corp Consulting who helped us with the process. He probably interviewed 60 members of the various NMMA boards, the MRAA board, Grow Boating board, and we used that feedback to produce a quantitative survey that we sent to NMMA members, non-members, MRAA members, NMMA exhibitors, literally thousands of people in the industry, to get feedback on what they thought NMMA was doing well and what they needed from NMMA in the future. And the result, and then we analyzed all of this and discussed it and brainstormed, and just earlier this month at IBEX, early in October at IBEX, the board approved the plan. And basically, the plan looks at 3 areas. And number one, it confirmed that the things we are doing today are adding value to the industry. But as we look to the future, they want to see greater investment in advocacy. They want to see continued and expanded effort to attract and retain first-time boat buyers. And they want us to try to help them address the workforce issues that not only our industry, but most industries are experiencing today.
Sure.
And so, from an advocacy point of view, in the last year, we added an additional lobbyist in Washington, and we added an additional communications person and communications firm to support our advocacy efforts. And it came at just the right time because we have been at the forefront in the news media on this tariff issue. But as we move into our fiscal year 19, we are looking to beef up our state legislative efforts. We'll be adding 2 people focused more on our state legislative efforts, one in the South Atlantic region, one in the Great Lakes region, in addition to the 2 people we have in D.C. that work state issues. And these regional people will be working to get NMMA members and the industry more engaged with their state legislatures, get them more engaged with the boat pack, get them more engaged with the federal legislators through plant visits. And synergistically, we're just trying to increase our impact at both the state and federal level. We've got a goal to increase the boat pack. This year we collected a little over $200,000, which was double what we did 2 years ago. But our goal for the next 5 years is to get to $500,000 a year for our boat pack, which would make us a political force in Washington that greater than we've ever been before.
Sure.
From attracting and retaining first-time boat buyers, we will be contributing more money to the Discover Boating campaign. We're adding $1 million to that effort in fiscal year 2019 and hoping to do that, increase that amount of contribution over the next couple of years. And we're dedicating funds to do consumer research to make sure we understand why we're not retaining first-time boat buyers and why we're not seeing as many first-time boat buyers as we did 15 or 20 years ago. And
Sure.
then finally, we're going to invest some resources in working with our members at a local level, creating some models for working with local schools and local economic development agencies to figure out how we attract more qualified workers, as well as putting together a promotional campaign that can be used locally to promote careers in the boating industry.
Yeah, that's an incredible issue. I know that you worked with Matt and Liz over at MRA and Wendy Mackey as well, correct? Up in Rhode Island?
Correct.
Okay.
In fact, MRA and NMMA worked with Wendy to develop what's called the 10+1 strategy. And part of our 3-year strategic plan is to put some resources behind that 10+1 strategy.
Can you talk about that a little bit? What explain that to everybody if they're not familiar with it?
Well, this report, which is available to anybody who wants it, it kind of lays out some 10 strategies for potentially dealing with the workforce issues. And it's everything from working with local schools, working with technical schools, working with local economic development agencies, promoting careers in boating. And then the +1 is to have some staff dedicated to working with members to try to implement some of these other 10 strategies. And so we have on our staff Julie Balzano, who's been working on our export promotion activities, and she is now going to take on this workforce development activity as well. And we've given her a little budget. She's just getting started, but we think that there are some members doing some interesting things with their local economic development agencies and schools, and we'd like to not only support them, but then take what they've done and create a case study or a model that others might use in their local areas and get that
replicated across the country. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Exactly.
Very good. And it's exciting to hear the increase in Discover Boating, and I'm hoping to have Carl on the show in the future as well. But I know you focus a lot on the government side, the legislative side, and that. What can you tell us about Discover Boating that we might be seeing there?
Well, Carl is the better man to talk to you about that. He really understands every aspect of it. But this last year we did a test in 3 markets where we bought cable television ads at a level that would approximate a national ad campaign. And we did not see the increase in awareness from adding cable TV to the mix that we thought we might. And so our efforts to promote digitally, through social media, through online advertising, etc., have been very successful. We are directing about 3.2 million people a year from discoverboating.com to manufacturer and dealer websites. And the role of Discover Boating is to create awareness and help move people down the purchase funnel, answer their questions, overcome their fears, objections, barriers. But as they get close to the bottom of the funnel, we really hand them off to the manufacturers and the dealers, and it's up to them to then make the sale. Discover Boating doesn't sell boats, it sells boating. But, we sell about, 260,000 boats last year, and we're sending 3.2 million prospects to manufacturer and dealer websites a year. And the important thing to understand is that these 3.2 million are not people who are ready to buy this week or next week, but they're people who have spent a fair amount of time on the Discover Boating website and have clicked through to a manufacturer website or dealer website. And so they are, they're definitely quality, but they're not going to buy today. They need to be nurtured. One of the things I talked about at IBEX is our industry, in my opinion, is very product focused and very sales focused. And, you know, you look at the advertising our industry does, and if you took the brand out of the ad, you know, the ads all look the same. It's all just a picture of a boat or a boat going across the water. We don't sell the lifestyle. We don't sell the experience enough. So I think, and with our sales focus, and I understand we have to make sales, you know, we got to pay bills today, but we also need to be nurture marketing these people that are higher up in the funnel who may not buy for 3 months or 6 months or 12 months, so that we're getting them further and further along toward purchase. So I'm not saying we need to stop focusing on product and innovation or stop focusing on sales, but we also need to focus on the lifestyle, and we need to focus more on marketing and nurture marketing.
I couldn't agree more. I spoke at a dealer meeting a couple weeks ago, and I have the educational spectrum of the boat buyer that, you know, people go through a progression or a spectrum from, hey, honey, maybe we should buy a boat, to money changing hands, and that can take weeks, months, but oftentimes years. And it was very interesting. They brought 5 of their buyers, and this was a higher end, you know, $150,000 to $500,000 center console manufacturer. They brought 5 of their clients, and each one of them talked about it took 5, 6. One of them was 2 years to make a decision to buy his third boat he was adding to his fleet. And you're exactly right. That relationship and that nurturing, I think, is a huge opportunity within our industry.
It really is. I mean, I was talking to one person one day, and they said, you know, our sales training teaches us if the prospect is not ready to buy, move on to the next prospect. Don't waste any time on them. And that may or may not be good sales strategy, but it's horrible marketing. And
right. Yep.
The person that's not ready to buy today can be nurtured into a purchaser, you know, even if it takes 12 months or 24 months. This whole concept of having a pipeline of future purchasers is something that seems foreign to this industry.
Yeah, I call it planting the seeds, and you know, you water it here, you give it a little fertilizer there, and you just nurture that relationship along. And what's amazing is what comes out on the other end is a customer that has a much more enjoyable experience with the boat, and oftentimes is an easier sale. You know, when you look at actually the negotiation portion of it. And yeah, that's very exciting that you're seeing that as well, and seeing that opportunity of converting, you know, more of those 3.2 million potential buyers for sure.
You know, the other thing is I had breakfast earlier this week with Matt Grun from NMMA, and we talked about a wide range of subjects, and you know, we our organizations are working together so well these days. And he was talking to me about some research that he's recently seen that my number may be wrong, but it's directionally correct. About 44% of boat buyers never hear from the dealer again once they drive away with their new boat.
Oh, absolutely. I see that in my mystery shopping all the time. Absolutely. Yeah.
And I mean, how can we retain people in the industry, in the lifestyle, when we just drop them like a hot potato after we made the sale?
Yeah. If you're not a now buyer, then I've got to move on to the next now buyer versus, hey, this is a big decision. You have a lot of education to do, a lot of learning and research to do. Let me help with that, and let me be a resource for you.
Yeah, yeah. And don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a lot of dealers doing a great job today. In fact, I think that the manufacturers, I've been in the industry for 19 years, and I would say the manufacturers today are definitely building a better product than they were 19 years ago, and the dealers are doing a much better job in sales and service to the customer than they were 19 years ago. But
sure,
you know what? That there's always room to get better.
Well, yeah, I always look at that opportunity, and the number of people that would consider voting, I think is very large, but it's a decision that it takes some time, it takes some education, it takes some research, and it can be scary for that, especially for the first time buyer. And I love that that you are having that conversation and seeing that as an opportunity, because that's where I focus a lot of our attention with the dealers we work with. And I know Matt and his team over there with everything they're doing is a great resource to help solve that for the industry. So you had mentioned that for 19 years, you've seen the industry come a long way. And since our last conversation, you also made another announcement. So about what you'll be doing in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I recently announced that I will retire as the president of NMMA on September 30th, 2019, after 20 years with the industry. It's a great industry. I love my job, love the work I do, love the people I work with. But folks always told me, you'll know when it's time, and I guess I know it's time for me to go on and do something else and let some other folks take the helm here.
Well, yeah, you definitely have had a huge impact on the industry, and I appreciate you taking the time to visit with us here today. Tom, is there anything I didn't ask you or we didn't talk about that we should have?
Well, that's a good question. I really can't think of anything. I would just say maybe that we have a great team of professionals here at NMMA, and I know Matt has a growing team at MRAA, and I would wish the industry would just take more advantage of the resources that NMMA and MRAA have to offer them. We've got between us probably 110 or 115 staff that are really here to serve the industry. And when you call, we're waiting for your call, and we'll do everything we can to help you. It's not to say we're always going to have the answer that you want or that you need, but we'll do everything we can to help you because, I've always said our mission is your success, and we want the industry to be successful. So, you use NMMA, use MRA, use us more to help you be more successful.
Yeah, the tools that you all have created on the marketing side for sure, with Grow Boating, that a dealer just has access to or anybody in the industry, as long as you give credit for the photo and the piece that you're using. I mean, you guys have some amazing resources that are just there for the use of anybody to help in their marketing and their effort to sell more boats. And I would agree. And Liz over there with the educational group at MRAA, they have a ton of resources that are incredibly valuable. So that's a great point.
Yeah, and they're doing a fantastic job.
Yeah. So, well, hey, Tom, I really appreciate you joining me. Again, I wish you, hopefully we'll run into each other at some point before your retirement, but congratulations on all the great work that you've done. And I'm sure there are several things that you'll be getting checked off the list before you hand over the reins in September.
I still got a lot of work to do between now and then.
I will let you get to it. Thank you very much, Tom.
Matt, good being with you. Take care.
Man, what a great interview with Tom. Unfortunately, he's going to be leaving the his post as president of NMMA, but he has had a huge impact on the industry. He brought us some great insights, amazing the numbers that we talked about and how that may impact funding going forward and be a positive impact on the industry. Incredible guest. I appreciate him being with us. If you are interested in growing your dealership, as he said, now is the time to make hay while the industry is on the rise. Economic indicators are all pointing very positively, and you can go get our free report, 11 Ways to Sell More Boats Now and Forever. You can do that at boatdealerprofits.com/11ways. So it's real simple to do, boatdealerprofits.com/1111ways, WAYS, and you can put your information in there and get that special report. Incredibly valuable, some killer strategies. So go ahead and check that out. And thank you for listening. We'll talk to you next time.